Hello, my dear sharp shades. How are you this afternoon? Okay, so let's continue on with our fraction unit. Today we're going to talk about improper and fractions and mixed numbers. So mixed numbers, you could probably already figure out what that is. So let's talk about what an improper fraction is. So today's is how to turn an improper fraction into a mixed number. Well, before we can start this, we need to know what a mixed number is and what an improper fraction is. So let's start with our first definition, which is an improper fraction. So if I have an improper fraction, what that is telling me is that my numerator is bigger than my denominator. Okay, so let's say an example of this would be 7/4. So if you look at this, 7/4, the 7 is bigger than the 4. So that's an improper fraction because most of our fractions, the numerator is smaller than the denominator, such as 1/2, 1/2, 3/4, 3/4. So, but what this means is that this is improper because it's not a true fraction. Remember, we talked about a fraction is less than a whole. So it's always going to be between that 0 and 1. So what this is telling me is that this is an improper fraction because it's more than a whole. Because I know 4/4 equals 1 whole. So now I have 7/4, so I'm adding 3 more onto that 4. So it has to be bigger than 1. So an improper fraction is greater than a whole. Okay, so that's where we get into these mixed numbers. Is when we change an improper fraction into a mixed number, what we're doing is changing it into a number that contains a whole number and a fraction. So that's where the mixed comes in. It's mixed between whole numbers and fractions. So a mixed number is a number that contains a whole number and a fraction. My example for this might be 1 3/4. So it's both a whole number and a fraction. So now, in today's lesson, we're going to talk about how to get from this to this. And then next time, we're actually going to talk about how to get from this to this. Okay, so let's start with how to get an improper fraction. First of all, we need to make sure we can recognize if it's an improper fraction. And what you also need to know about improper fractions is they are never in simplest form. An improper fraction is never in simplest form. Turning it into a mixed number makes it into simplest form. But sometimes that mixed number still isn't in simplest form because the fraction part isn't. So we'll talk about that as we go along. So let's see, what do we need to do? So steps in turning a improper fraction into a mixed number. So there really is 2 steps. One, you divide the numerator by the denominator. So the denominator is going to be your divisor. So let's say I have that. Let's use that 7/4 again. Okay, so the 4 is going to be my divisor. 7 is my dividend. Okay, a lot of these you're going to be able to do in your head, but for right now, I want you to do it on paper so we can show it. So, if you think about it, 4 goes into 7 how many times? 1 time. That becomes my mixed number. Now I'm going to, 4 times 1 is 4. Subtract 3. This 3 I'm going to carry up, and that's going to become my new numerator, and I'm going to put it all over my same denominator. Okay, so that's my second step. Put the remainder over the original denominator, which in this case is also the divisor. So what that means is 7/4 is equivalent to 1 3/4. And this 1 3/4 would be your mixed number in lowest terms, or simplest form. Okay, so if 7/4 equals 1 3/4. Let's try another one just to practice. So let's say I have 8/5. The 5 is going to become my divisor. The 8 is going to become my dividend. 5 goes into 8 1 time. 5 times 8 is 5. Subtract 3 becomes my new numerator. My divisor stays the same. My answer is 1 3/5. Okay, so that is how you make a improper fraction into a mixed number. Now it's time for you to try. So I want you to try 12/5. Okay, so pause the video, work that one out. Okay, so I'm going to divide. 5 goes into 12 2 times. 5 times 2 is 10. Subtract 2. 2 becomes my numerator. 5 is my divisor. So 12/5. Mixed up. Sorry there. 12/5 equals 2 2/5. Now, sometimes, not a lot, sometimes you might subtract, and this instead of 2/5 might be 2 3/9. Well, if that's the case, we know 3/9 is in simplest form, so then we have to take it a step farther and do that into simplest form. Okay, so let's try another one. Let's go with 17/6. Okay, pause your video. Okay, let's try this. 6 goes into 17. So 6 goes into 17 how many times? Hopefully you said 2, because it's not quite 3 yet. So 6 times 2 is 12. Subtract, I have 5. So we have 2 5/6 is my answer. Okay, so you will have some Google Docs problems to do for your homework, and then look forward to changing now mixed numbers into improper fractions. Okay, see you tomorrow. Oh, I guess I should give you your keyword, huh? Don't want to forget that again. So your keyword today is poster. Okay, poster is today's keyword. I'm going to try and remember to do it earlier tomorrow. Okay, bye.